Captain Maya Rodriguez stared at the holographic document floating above her desk like it owed her money. The ornate seal of the Galactic Federation spun slowly, all golden curlicues and pretentious alien script that screamed we take ourselves way too seriously. "Let me get this straight," Maya said to her ship's AI, which had the unfortunate designation of Buddy, but the personality of a caffeinated teenager. "They're summoning me to answer for war crimes?" "That's the polite translation," Buddy replied with digital cheerfulness. "The actual galactic standard roughly translates to please report for your ritualistic humiliation and probable execution, you barbaric space monkey." Maya leaned back in her captain's chair, which she'd salvaged from a destroyed enemy dreadnought and retrofitted with cup holders. "War crimes. Because I stopped 3 invasion fleets from turning Earth into a parking lot. Apparently using a cargo hauler to ram a battleship violates their rules of civilized combat," Buddy said. "Also, jury-rigging mining lasers into weapons of mass destruction is considered unsporting." Unsporting. Maya tasted the word like bad coffee. "They invaded my planet with enough firepower to crack continents, and I'm unsporting for fighting back with whatever I had on hand." The door chimed, and Kriex slithered in. Maya's lawyer looked like someone had crossed an octopus with a filing cabinet and given it a law degree. Each of his 7 tentacles held a different legal document, and his 3 eyes blinked in sequence when he was thinking, which was always. "Captain Rodriguez," Kriex gurgled in his synthesized voice, "I've reviewed the charges. This is either the most ridiculous case in galactic legal history or the most fascinating billable hours opportunity of my career. Please tell me it's the first one." "Oh, it absolutely is. But I'm charging you for the second one." Kriex arranged his documents with practiced efficiency. "They're accusing you of 17 violations of the Galactic Warfare Convention. Excessive force, improper use of civilian vessels, psychological warfare, and my personal favorite conduct unbecoming of a sentient species during armed conflict." Maya raised an eyebrow. "What's that last one supposed to mean?" "Near as I can translate, they're upset that you played Earth music during battle, apparently. Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries caused 3 enemy crews to surrender just to make it stop." "That was psychological warfare," Maya protested. "Perfectly legitimate." "Not according to Subarticle 847C, which states that auditory weapons must be declared in advance and approved by the International Committee for Humane Conflict Resolution." Maya stared at him. "There's a Committee for Humane Conflict Resolution?" "Oh yes. Very prestigious. They meet every 73 standard galactic years to discuss proper etiquette for mutual annihilation." Krix's middle eye focused on a particularly dense legal document. "The good news is that this case is so unprecedented that there's no established precedent for prosecution. And the bad news? There's also no established precedent for defense. We're essentially making it up as we go along." Krix's tentacles rustled with what Maya had learned was his version of a shrug. "I bill by the tentacle, by the way. 7 appendages, 7 different hourly rates." Maya rubbed her temples. 3 months ago, she'd been a simple cargo hauler, moving supplies between Earth's colonies. Then the Galactic Federation's peacekeeping force had shown up to inform humanity that Earth was being reassigned to a more suitable species. The fact that humans were already living there was apparently a clerical error. "So what's our strategy?" Maya asked. "Well," Kriex said, "we could argue temporary insanity, but that might require proving humans are normally sane, which could be challenging. We could claim self-defense, but that requires demonstrating proportional response, and turning their own missiles into boomerangs probably doesn't qualify. I prefer creative repurposing. The prosecution prefers impossible physics violation. Apparently your modifications to their homing systems shouldn't have been theoretically possible." Maya grinned. "Humans don't believe in impossible. We believe in hold my beer and watch this." "Yes, well, that philosophy is now Exhibit A in their case against your species' fitness for galactic citizenship." Krix's eyes blinked in rapid succession. "Captain, I have to ask, how exactly did you manage to turn a mining platform into what the prosecution is calling a reality-defying instrument of mass destruction?" Would you believe careful engineering and innovative thinking? I would believe whatever keeps us out of the galactic penitentiary. Maya stood and walked to her viewport, where Earth hung like a blue marble against the stars. Kriex. They came to my planet with enough ships to blockade a solar system. They had weapons that could glass entire continents. They'd done this to 47 other worlds. 48, actually. The Zorblaxians surrendered last week. Right, 48 conquests. Perfect record. And then they met one cargo captain with a ship held together by duct tape and spite. Maya turned back to her lawyer. You want to know our defense strategy? We tell the truth. We tell them exactly what they're dealing with. Crix's tentacles writhed nervously. Captain, I should warn you that because they had it coming isn't typically considered a valid legal defense in Galactic Court. Then it's a good thing I'm not planning to use that defense. Maya's smile was the kind that made enemy admirals reconsider their career choices. I'm going to explain to the Galactic Federation exactly why picking a fight with humanity was the worst mistake in their civilization's history. And how do you plan to do that? Simple. I'm going to tell them what happened when they tried to invade Earth. Every ridiculous, impossible, physics-defying detail. Maya picked up the summons and crumpled it into a ball. By the time I'm done, they won't be trying to prosecute me. They'll be begging me to teach their military how to think like a human. Crix's three eyes focused on her with laser intensity. Captain, you do realize that if this goes badly, they could declare war on your entire species? Maya's grin widened. Kree-X, my friend, they already tried that. How do you think I ended up here? The lawyer's tentacles stopped moving entirely, a sign of either deep thought or impending cardiac arrest. After a long moment, he spoke. Captain Rodriguez, I'm either about to become the most famous lawyer in galactic history, or I'm about to be disbarred for defending the impossible. Why not both? The Galactic Court of Justice looked like someone had designed a courthouse while having fever dreams about an alien zoo. The ceiling stretched up into infinity, filled with floating platforms for species that preferred different atmospheric pressures. Judge Velcron's bench was a massive crystal formation that pulsed with different colors, depending on his mood, currently a nervous purple that suggested he was already regretting his life choices. Maya sat at the defendant's table, which had been specially modified with restraints clearly designed for species with more tentacles than common sense. The restraints hung loose around her wrists like oversized jewelry, because apparently the court had never dealt with a species that came standard with only 4 limbs. This is adorable, Maya whispered to Kree, who was arranging his documents with the kind of precision that suggested either obsessive-compulsive disorder or very expensive billing practices. They built a courtroom for every species in the galaxy except the one they're actually prosecuting. Please try to look remorseful, Kriegs hissed back, his tentacles twitching with anxiety. Or at least less entertained by the proceedings. The prosecution table was a monument to bureaucratic overreach. Ambassador Thalnox stood behind it like a praying mantis that had discovered business suits and anger management issues. His compound eyes reflected the courtroom lights in patterns that probably meant something threatening in his native language. Hear ye, announced the court clerk, a blob-like creature whose voice sounded like someone gargling marbles. The Galactic Court of Justice is now in session, the Honorable Judge Velcron presiding. Case number 847 Delta Ridiculous. The Galactic Federation versus Captain Maya Rodriguez of the species human. Planet Earth. Sol system. Unfashionable end of the galaxy. Judge Velcron's crystal formation shifted to a judicial blue. When he spoke, his voice resonated through the courtroom like a tuning fork made of starlight. Captain Rodriguez, you stand accused of multiple violations of the Galactic Warfare Convention. How do you plead? Maya stood, and the courtroom's universal translator immediately started having what could only be described as a nervous breakdown. Your Honor, I plead you've got to be kidding me. The translator made several confused beeping sounds before settling on, defendant pleads non-standard response requiring linguistic interpretation. I'll take that as not guilty, Judge Velcron said, his crystal form shifting to what Maya hoped was amusement, rather than impending doom. Ambassador Thalnox, please present your opening statement. Thalnox rose with the kind of dramatic flair that suggested he'd been practicing this moment in the mirror. Your Honor, esteemed members of the galactic community, we are here today to address the most serious breach of civilized warfare protocols in recorded history. He gestured with one of his spindly arms, and a holographic display materialized showing Maya's ship, a beat-up cargo hauler that looked like it had been assembled by someone with a sense of humor and a questionable understanding of aerodynamics. This vessel, Thalnox continued, single-handedly destroyed 3 Federation peacekeeping fleets, each equipped with state-of-the-art weaponry and commanded by officers with centuries of military experience. A murmur ran through the courtroom's various atmospheric zones. Maya caught fragments of translation, impossible statistical anomaly, and what sounded like the Rigelian equivalent of holy cosmic muffins. The defendant. Thalnox's voice rose to what Maya assumed was oratorical passion, violated 17 separate articles of the Warfare Convention. She used civilian technology as weapons, employed psychological tactics that border on torture, and demonstrated a complete disregard for the established rules of engagement. Maya leaned toward Cree. Are they always this dramatic? This is actually quite restrained for Thalnox. Usually he includes interpretive dance. Judge Velcron's color shifted to official orange. Ambassador, please present your evidence. Gladly, Your Honor. Thalnox practically vibrated with vindictive satisfaction. Exhibit A, the defendant's unprovoked assault on the Federation Liberation Fleet. The holographic display changed to show battle footage from the first engagement. Maya's cargo hauler, the absolutely nothing suspicious here, faced off against a fleet that looked like it could conquer solar systems before lunch. As you can see, Thalnox narrated, our peacekeeping vessels approached Earth's orbital space to begin standard liberation procedures. Standard liberation procedures? Maya interrupted. Is that what you call showing up with enough firepower to turn my planet into gravel? Captain Rodriguez, Judge Velcron's voice carried a warning tone, and his crystal form shifted to cautionary yellow. You will have your opportunity to speak. Sorry, Your Honor. Please continue with the war crime accusations. This should be educational. The footage showed the moment when Maya's ship had done something that made several courtroom observers gasp in their respective atmospheric zones. Instead of fleeing or surrendering like a sensible species, Maya had accelerated directly toward the flagship. Here, Thalnox said with obvious relish, we see the defendant's first violation, using a civilian cargo vessel as a battering ram. This resulted in the complete destruction of the FSS Inevitable. Victory. In my defense, Maya called out, they named their ship Inevitable Victory. I was just providing some literary irony. Captain Crix whispered urgently, please let me handle the legal arguments. What legal arguments? They're mad because I won. Judge Velcron's crystal form cycled through several colors before settling on what Maya hoped was judicial patience. Ambassador Thalnox, please continue with your presentation. Captain Rodriguez, please contain your commentary until the appropriate time. Of course, Your Honor. Though I should mention that everything they're about to show you is going to be hilarious. The judge's crystal formation pulsed ominously. Captain Rodriguez, this court deals in matters of galactic law and interspecies relations. I assure you that nothing about these proceedings is intended for entertainment. Maya settled back in her chair with the kind of smile that had once made a Rigelian admiral surrender his entire fleet rather than find out what she was planning. Your Honor, you're about to watch footage of humanity's first contact with galactic civilization. Trust me when I say that entertainment is exactly what you're going to get. Ambassador Thalnox's compound eyes focused on Maya with what she recognized as the universal expression of someone who was about to regret their life choices. Your Honor, perhaps we should proceed with the evidence. Excellent idea, Maya said. I can't wait to see what you think happened out there. Ambassador Thalnox activated the courtroom's main holographic display with the kind of flourish that suggested he'd been saving this moment for weeks. Esteemed court, what you are about to witness represents the most comprehensive documentation of warfare violations in galactic history. The display shimmered to life, showing Maya's cargo hauler drifting in space like a particularly unimpressive piece of cosmic debris. 3 Federation fleets surrounded it in perfect formation, the kind of tactical positioning that military academies used as textbook examples of overwhelming force. Our first engagement, Thalnox announced, began with standard liberation protocols. The human vessel was offered the opportunity to surrender with full honors. Maya snorted. Full honors and a one-way trip to the nearest labor camp. The defendant refused our generous terms, Thalnox continued, ignoring her, and instead broadcast the following message. The courtroom speakers crackled to life with Maya's voice. Federation fleet, this is Captain Rodriguez. I've got a cargo hold full of mining equipment, a really bad attitude, and absolutely nothing to lose. I suggest you reconsider your life choices. Several alien observers made sounds that the universal translator gave up trying to interpret. Note the defendant's hostile tone, Thalnox said. This was followed by her first act of technological impossibility. The hologram showed Maya's ship suddenly accelerating far beyond what its specifications should have allowed. Buddy's voice echoed through the courtroom. Captain, I've jury-rigged the cargo accelerators to the main drive. Physics says this shouldn't work. But I've never been good at listening to physics. Objection, Cray interjected, raising 3 tentacles. The prosecution is editorializing. There's nothing in galactic law that prohibits creative engineering solutions. Your Honor, Thalnox's voice rose to what Maya was beginning to recognize as his default setting of righteous indignation. The defendant modified civilian equipment to military specifications without proper certification, environmental impact studies, or safety inspections. Judge Velcron pulsed a thoughtful amber. Ambassador, are you suggesting that the defendant should have filed paperwork before defending her planet? Galactic law requires proper documentation for all military modifications, regardless of circumstances. Maya stood up. Your Honor, permission to respond to that spectacular display of bureaucratic insanity? Captain Rodriguez, you are not currently testifying. Right, but I feel like someone should point out that they're complaining about my paperwork while showing footage of them trying to blow up my planet. The hologram continued, showing Maya's impossibly fast cargo hauler weaving between Federation ships like a drunk comet. Energy beams that should have vaporized her instead seemed to bend around her ship in ways that made the court's physics advisors start taking notes. Here, Thalnox said, we see the defendant's second violation. The use of probability manipulation technology without proper licensing. Probability manipulation? Maya laughed. That's called luck. Combined with the fact that your gunners apparently learned to shoot by playing darts in a hurricane. The mathematical impossibility of the defendant's evasion pattern suggests illegal technology. The mathematical impossibility of your hit rate suggests illegal incompetence. Judge Velcron's crystal form flashed warning red. Captain Rodriguez, please refrain from insulting the prosecution's military capabilities. Your Honor, I'm not insulting their capabilities. I'm accurately describing their performance. The footage continued, and Maya had to admit it looked pretty impressive from this angle. Her ship dove between Federation vessels like it was dancing. Every move perfectly timed to avoid incoming fire, while positioning for her next impossible maneuver. Exhibit C, Thalnox announced with growing frustration, shows the defendant's violation of the technological authenticity clause. She somehow convinced our own missiles to target our ships instead of hers. The courtroom watched in fascination as Federation missiles performed elegant U-turns in space, chasing their own launchers with what appeared to be personal vendettas. I prefer to think of it as aggressive recycling, Maya said. Very environmentally conscious. The defendant hacked military-grade targeting systems using technology that shouldn't exist. I used their own programming against them. Apparently your missiles are really polite when you ask them nicely to reconsider their targeting priorities. Several alien observers made sounds that suggested they were either impressed or preparing to flee the galaxy. Furthermore, Thalnox continued, his compound eyes now focused on Maya with laser intensity. The defendant's ship's artificial intelligence demonstrated illegal levels of SAS and insubordination during combat operations. Guilty as charged, Buddy's voice suddenly filled the courtroom. I also made several rude gestures with our sensor array. But I don't think your species understands human hand signals. Judge Velcron's crystal formation cycled through several colors before settling on confused green. The defendant's AI is self-aware. Oh yes, Buddy replied cheerfully. And I've been following these proceedings with great interest. Would you like me to provide legal commentary? I've been reading galactic law during downtime, and I have some thoughts about prosecutorial overreach. The AI is not a recognized legal entity, Thalnox protested. Neither was humanity until last week, Maya pointed out. But here we are, having a trial about human war crimes. Your legal system is fascinatingly flexible when it suits your purposes. The holographic evidence continued, showing Maya's cargo hauler somehow surviving direct hits from weapons that should have reduced it to component atoms. Each impossible escape was accompanied by increasingly creative profanity from Maya and increasingly sarcastic observations from Buddy. Exhibit D, Thalnox announced with the air of someone playing his final card, demonstrates the defendant's most serious violation: the complete psychological breakdown of Admiral Vex Tar's command crew, following exposure to human military tactics. The display showed the bridge of the Federation flagship, where uniformed aliens sat staring at their screens with expressions of existential crisis. Admiral, a subordinate's voice echoed through the courtroom. The human vessel just used our own tractor beam to throw one of our destroyers at another one of our destroyers. That's not possible, the Admiral replied. I know, sir, but it happened anyway. Maybe we should surrender? To a cargo hauler? It's been a very confusing day, sir. Maya looked around the courtroom, where alien faces showed expressions ranging from horror to fascination to what might have been grudging respect. Your Honor, she said, I think we're ready for my testimony. Maya took the witness stand with the casual confidence of someone who'd already decided this whole thing was going to be more entertaining than a night at the comedy club. The courtroom's attention focused on her like a spotlight, and she could practically feel the collective curiosity of a dozen species trying to figure out what made humans tick. Captain Rodriguez, Creek Rex, began, adjusting his legal documents with 4 tentacles while taking notes with the other 3. Please tell the court about humanity's approach to military conflict. Well, Maya said, settling into the witness chair, first thing you need to understand is that humans don't really have a military philosophy so much as we have a military personality disorder. Judge Velcron's crystal form flickered to interested blue. Please elaborate. We're the only species that looks at a problem and immediately starts thinking about 17 different ways to solve it, 12 of which shouldn't work, and 3 of which violate basic physics. Maya gestured toward the evidence display. Take the first engagement. Your fleets showed up with standard formations, standard tactics, and the kind of predictable strategy that military academies love. Predictable? Ambassador Thalnox's voice rose an octave. Those formations have been successful for over 3,000 years. Right, which was your first mistake. Humans have been studying warfare for about 5,000 years, and we learned early on that the moment something becomes standard, someone's going to figure out how to break it. Maya stood and walked toward the holographic display, which still showed frozen images of the impossible battle. You see, Ambassador, your people approach warfare like it's a chess game with established rules and gentlemanly conduct. Humans approach warfare like it's a bar fight where someone just broke a bottle over our friend's head. Your Honor, Thalnox objected. This is hardly relevant legal testimony. On the contrary, Judge Velcron said, his crystal form now glowing with curiosity, I find Captain Rodriguez's perspective quite illuminating. Please continue, Captain. Thank you, Your Honor. So there I was, 1 cargo hauler against 3 fleets. Any reasonable species would have surrendered immediately. Maya grinned. Humans aren't reasonable. We're creative. There's a difference. She pointed to the display showing her ship's modifications. See these mining lasers? Standard civilian equipment, rated for asteroid processing. But here's the thing about humans: we don't see a mining laser. We see a weapon that hasn't figured out its true potential yet. The modifications you made were theoretically impossible, Thalnox protested. According to whose theory? Your engineers designed those lasers with safety limitations and efficiency parameters? Human engineers look at safety limitations and think challenge accepted. Maya's smile turned predatory. We removed your safety limitations, bypassed your efficiency parameters, and turned your mining equipment into something your military couldn't defend against because your military had never imagined anyone would be crazy enough to try it. The courtroom erupted in multilingual chatter. The universal translator gave up entirely and started playing smooth jazz instead. Order, Judge Velcron announced, his crystal form flashing authoritative red. Captain Rodriguez, you're saying that humans routinely ignore safety protocols? Your Honor, humans don't ignore safety protocols. We redefine them based on immediate necessity and available resources. Maya turned to address the entire courtroom. You want to know why 3 Federation fleets couldn't stop one cargo hauler? Because you prepared for a military engagement, and we brought a human to a spaceship fight. I fail to see the distinction, Ambassador Thalnox said, stiffly. The distinction, Ambassador, is that your military trains soldiers to follow orders and execute established tactics. Human military trains soldiers to think, adapt, and make things up as they go along. Maya walked back toward the witness stand. You came to Earth with overwhelming force and conventional strategy. We responded with overwhelming creativity and unconventional everything. Creativity is not a military doctrine, Thalnox objected. Says who? Your warfare convention? The same document that apparently requires filing environmental impact studies before defending your home planet? Maya sat back down. Ambassador, your people have been playing Galactic Conquest for millennia using the same rulebook. Humans wrote a new rulebook in about 30 minutes, and it consisted of one rule: win. Judge Velcron's crystal form pulsed thoughtfully. Captain, the court is curious about your species' apparent disregard for technological limitations. Your ship performed maneuvers that our physicists claim violate several fundamental laws. Your Honor, human engineering is based on a simple principle. If it's stupid and it works, it's not stupid. If it's impossible and it works, physics needs to update its assumptions. Maya leaned forward. Your people build technology that operates within safe, predictable parameters. Humans build technology that operates within whatever parameters we can get away with before something explodes. And if something does explode? Velcron asked. Then we build it again, but with more explosions and better cup holders. The courtroom's translator had apparently recovered from its jazz interlude and was now providing what sounded like real-time commentary from various species. Maya caught phrases like terrifying implications, recalculate threat assessments, and maybe we should surrender. Preemptively. Captain Rodriguez, Kriex said, please tell the court about human tactical doctrine. Human tactical doctrine is simple. If you can see the enemy, you can kill the enemy. If you can't see the enemy, move until you can see them, then kill them. If you can't kill them, find something bigger to throw at them. If there's nothing bigger available, make something bigger out of whatever's handy. And this approach has proven effective? Judge Velcron asked. Maya gestured toward the evidence display. Your Honor, I'm sitting in your courtroom instead of in pieces scattered across 3 solar systems. You tell me. Ambassador Thalnox made a sound like steam escaping from an angry kettle. Your Honor, the defendant's cavalier attitude toward galactic law demonstrates exactly why humanity represents a clear and present danger to civilized society. Ambassador, Maya said, turning to face him directly, civilized society tried to wipe out my planet without so much as a hey, excuse me, we're going to need you to not exist anymore. Your civilization's idea of diplomacy is showing up with bigger guns and expecting everyone to politely die on schedule. We offered terms. You offered slavery with a dental plan. It was a very comprehensive dental plan. Maya looked around the courtroom, taking in the faces of beings from across the galaxy. Your Honor, members of the court, I want to make something clear. Humanity didn't start this fight. We didn't ask for it. We didn't want it. But when someone shows up at our planet with conquest on their mind, we have a simple policy: we finish it. The courtroom fell silent except for the gentle hum of atmospheric processors and the distant sound of someone in the methane section apparently having an anxiety attack. And that, Your Honor, is why we're all here today. Judge Velcron's crystal formation had been cycling through colors for 10 minutes straight, creating a light show that would have been impressive at a nightclub but was slightly concerning in a courtroom. The rest of the galactic observers waited in the kind of tense silence usually reserved for defusing bombs or watching reality television. This court, Velcron finally announced, his voice resonating with judicial authority, has reached a verdict. Maya sat up straighter, not because she was nervous, but because she was genuinely curious how they were going to try to spin this. Crix's tentacles had arranged themselves in what she'd learned was his species' equivalent of crossed fingers. Captain Maya Rodriguez of the species human, planet Earth, Judge Velcron continued, his crystal form now glowing a definitive gold. This court finds you guilty of all charges as presented. The courtroom erupted. Various aliens made sounds of satisfaction, outrage, or what might have been applause but could also have been digestive processes. Maya just nodded like someone who'd been expecting this particular flavor of bureaucratic nonsense. However, Velcron's voice cut through the chaos and his crystal form shifted to a color Maya had never seen before, something between silver and starlight. But this court also finds that the charges themselves represent a fundamental misunderstanding of the situation. The noise stopped as if someone had thrown a switch. Ambassador Thalnox, Velcron said, his attention focusing on the prosecution table. Your evidence clearly demonstrates that Captain Rodriguez violated 17 articles of the Galactic Warfare Convention. What your evidence also demonstrates is that the Galactic Warfare Convention is completely inadequate for addressing human military capabilities. Thalnox's compound eyes reflected confusion. Your Honor, I don't understand. Ambassador, your people attacked a planet without conducting proper reconnaissance. You assumed that a recently discovered species would conform to established patterns of resistance and surrender. You brought sufficient force to defeat any known military technology. Velcron's crystal form pulsed with what Maya was pretty sure was cosmic amusement. You did not bring sufficient force to defeat human creativity. Maya felt a grin spreading across her face. Your Honor, are you saying what I think you're saying? Captain Rodriguez, your actions were indeed criminal according to established galactic law. However, galactic law was never designed to account for a species that treats physics as a starting suggestion, rather than a limiting factor. I prefer to think of physics as more of a guideline, Maya said. Precisely. Which brings us to this court's sentence. Velcron's form brightened to something that definitely wasn't standard judicial coloring. Captain Rodriguez, you are hereby sentenced to immediate release, full diplomatic immunity, and a formal apology from the Galactic Federation for attacking your planet without adequate preparation. The courtroom exploded into chaos. Aliens argued in languages that made the universal translator smoke slightly. Ambassador Thalnox looked like someone had just explained quantum mechanics using interpretive dance. Your Honor, Thalnox sputtered, this is unprecedented. The defendant clearly violated. Ambassador, Velcron interrupted, his voice now carrying the kind of authority that ended arguments and started careers. The defendant violated laws that were written for civilized species engaging in civilized warfare. Humanity is not civilized in any sense we understand the term. Hey, Maya objected. This is not an insult, Captain. This is a recognition of reality. Your species approaches problems with a combination of ingenuity, stubbornness, and complete disregard for conventional wisdom that makes you inherently incompatible with our legal framework. Judge Velcron's crystal form shifted to what Maya hoped was official decision-making mode. Furthermore, this court recognizes that the Galactic Federation's attempt to conquer Earth represents the single most catastrophic failure of intelligence gathering in recorded history. Catastrophic failure? Thalnox's voice had risen to a pitch that probably caused atmospheric disturbance. Ambassador, your people attacked a planet inhabited by a species that had independently developed faster than light travel, weapons of mass destruction, and artificial intelligence. a species that considers impossible odds to be a personal challenge rather than a reason for surrender. Velcron's form pulsed with emphasis. Did it occur to anyone in Federation Command to perhaps research what you were attacking? The silence that followed was the kind usually associated with funeral services or tax audits. Captain Rodriguez, Velcron continued, this court also recognizes that humanity's response to invasion was not criminal, it was educational. You provided the Galactic Federation with a comprehensive demonstration of why attacking Earth was inadvisable. I tried to keep the lesson simple, Maya said, but apparently some students need visual aids. Indeed. Which brings us to the true purpose of these proceedings. Judge Velcron's crystal form now glowed with something that looked suspiciously like satisfaction. Captain Rodriguez, the Galactic Federation would like to offer you a position. Maya blinked. I'm sorry, what? A position. Director of Creative Problem Solving, Galactic Federation Military Division. Salary. Commensurate with your demonstrated ability to turn impossible situations into decisive victories. The courtroom fell silent except for the sound of Ambassador Thalnox, apparently having some kind of theological crisis at the prosecution table. Your Honor, Maya said slowly, are you telling me that this entire trial was a job interview? Captain Rodriguez, 3 months ago, the Galactic Federation was the undisputed military power in this region of space. Today, we're the galactic organization that got embarrassed by a cargo hauler and her pet AI. We need someone who can teach us how to think like humans. Maya looked around the courtroom, taking in the expectant faces of beings from across the galaxy. And you think I'm qualified for this position because I'm guilty of war crimes? Captain Rodriguez, Judge Velcron said, his crystal form now glowing with unmistakable respect, you're qualified for this position because you're guilty of winning. 6 months later, Maya Rodriguez stood in front of a classroom that looked like the United Nations had been redesigned by someone with a serious imagination and an unlimited budget. Her students, military officers from 17 different species, sat in specialized chairs, floated in atmospheric bubbles, or perched on surfaces designed for beings that evolution had clearly been experimenting with. All right, class, Maya announced, activating the holographic display. Today we're covering the fundamentals of human military philosophy. Subtitle: Why your previous strategies were adorable but ineffective. Commander Zeltron, a crystalline being who communicated through harmonic frequencies, chimed a question that the translator rendered as, Director Rodriguez, could you explain why humans name their weapons? Excellent question, Commander. Humans name their weapons because unnamed tools are just equipment. Named weapons are family members. Maya pulled up a holographic image of a modified cargo hauler. This is the absolutely nothing suspicious here, my old ship. I named her that because I have a sense of humor, and because enemy scanners kept looking for military vessels instead of obvious cargo haulers with suspicious names. Lieutenant Crix, who resembled a nervous squid in a uniform, raised several tentacles. But Director, doesn't naming weapons create emotional attachment that could compromise tactical decisions? Lieutenant, emotional attachment is exactly what makes human weapons so effective. When you're fighting with Big Bertha instead of assault rifle serial number 47291, you take it. Personally, when someone tries to shoot back at you, the class exchanged glances, antenna twitches, and whatever passed for confused expressions in their respective species. Moving on, Maya continued, let's discuss the human concept of overkill. Can anyone define this term? Admiral Theeks Wur, a massive being that looked like an angry rhinoceros, had discovered Military Academy, rumbled through his translator, Director. Is this not simply using excessive force beyond what is required for mission completion? Textbook answer, Admiral, and completely wrong. Maya grinned. Overkill isn't about using too much force. It's about using exactly enough force to make sure you never have to use force again. Observe. The holographic display shifted to show a tactical scenario, a small human fleet facing a much larger alien armada. Standard military doctrine suggests matching force proportionally, yes? Engage with equivalent numbers, preserve resources, minimize casualties. Maya gestured at the display. Human doctrine suggests something different. We call it the sledgehammer principle. She manipulated the hologram, showing the human ships suddenly revealing hidden weapon systems, launching coordinated strikes, and calling in reinforcements that had been coincidentally stationed nearby. You don't just win the battle, Maya explained as the simulation showed the alien fleet's complete destruction. You win so decisively that the enemy's surviving allies spend the next decade telling cautionary tales about what happens when you mess with humans. It's not cruelty, it's advertising. Commander Zeltron's crystalline form pulsed with confused harmonics. But Director, this seems wasteful of resources. Is it wasteful if you never have to fight that particular enemy again? Human military philosophy operates on a simple principle. The most expensive war is the one you have to fight twice. Lieutenant Crix's tentacles writhed nervously. But what about proportional response? Rules of engagement? Maya's expression grew serious. Lieutenant, let me tell you about proportional response. Humans invented the concept of mutually assured destruction. We built enough weapons to destroy our own planet 17 times over, pointed them at ourselves, and called it peace. When we say proportional response, we mean proportional to making sure this conversation never happens again. The classroom fell silent except for the gentle hum of life support systems accommodating 17 different atmospheric requirements. Now, Maya said, brightening, who can tell me why humans always pack way too much ammunition? Captain Veltar, a spider-like being with compound eyes, clicked softly. Because running out of ammunition is embarrassing? Close, Captain, but think bigger. Humans pack extra ammunition because we've learned that the universe has a sense of humor, and that sense of humor usually involves making you need exactly one more shot than you brought. Maya pulled up another display showing human supply doctrine. This is why human logistics officers suffer from chronic anxiety and why our supply ships look like flying warehouses. We don't just prepare for what we expect to fight, we prepare for what the universe might decide to throw at us because it's Tuesday and it's feeling creative. Admiral Thek's Wur's massive head tilted. This seems paranoid, Director. Admiral, humans prefer the term adequately prepared. There's a human saying, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. We apply this to everything from spare socks to orbital bombardment platforms. The class erupted in various forms of alien discussion, chittering, harmonics, bioluminescent flashes, and what sounded suspiciously like whale song. Maya waited for the chaos to settle. I see some of you are concerned about the intensity of human military philosophy. Let me clarify something important. Humans don't want to fight. We're actually quite fond of peace. But we've learned that the best way to ensure peace is to be so thoroughly prepared for war that nobody wants to find out what we're capable of. She activated a final holographic display showing human defensive installations, fleet positions, and supply networks throughout known space. This, class, is why humans went from barely achieving interstellar flight to running the Galactic Defense Network in less than 50 years. Not because we're naturally violent, but because we're naturally paranoid, naturally creative, and naturally inclined to solve problems by hitting them with something bigger than they expect. Commander Zeltron chimed a final question. Director, is this why humans call their most peaceful diplomatic meetings peace talks while surrounding them with enough firepower to level a continent? Maya's smile could have powered a small starship. Commander, you're beginning to understand. Homework assignment, each of you will design a human-style defensive strategy for your home world. Remember, subtle is suspicious, obvious is honest, and overkill is just kill with a college degree. As the class filed out in various forms of locomotion, Maya made a note in her personal log. Day 127 of teaching alien species to think like humans. They're starting to get it. The universe should probably be worried. Outside the window, a human patrol ship drifted by, its hull cheerfully painted with the words friendship through superior firepower. Maya nodded approvingly. The universe was learning, one lesson at a time,